I think I'll do one more video and then go, because it's late. A faint drip echoed from somewhere inside the garage. It filled my ears as I walked along, my thoughts drifting absently. I was on my way back from my last mission. Charisse had sent me to blow up an old storage facility. Some upstart vampire, an Iskari who'd defected to Randall's side, was using the place to hide weapons. She'd sent me out alone, so I had purposefully sabotaged my own explosives. I always do that. I planted the explosive inside, but sabotaged them carefully. That way, if Charisse sent another agent to see whether the facility hadn't exploded, I could pretend someone tampered with it after I left. Does that make the Iskari hate me less or not? I mean, hate me more. I really have to hope that the dream thing I'm about to get at some point, like Morgan doing the dream thing, for the Golgotha will really make that boost up, because this is not good. This is about halfway, maybe like a little bit less than halfway, I guess. It's so hard. It's so hard. Now I was on my way back to the hotel, taking a shortcut through the parking garage. With any luck, I'd arrive with time to spare and have the rest of the night to myself. A few weeks had passed since the night on the beach with Randall. I'd been so busy traveling around LA on various assignments I hadn't gotten much time to see him. Now and then I managed to sneak down to the beach, where we'd find somewhere private to hold each other, sharing kisses and the comfort of our embrace. We always talked about what we'd do when the war ended, planning our vacations, projects, and many other dreams. But somewhere in Randall's voice I always felt like there was a hint of doubt. With the war at its current stalemate, I understood his feelings, because I felt them too in a way. The garage was unnervingly quiet. All I could hear was the sound of my own footsteps and the droning hum of fluorescent lights overhead. I never figured out who kept these lights on, or if some electrical company had just never bothered to shut them off. Somewhere far above me, thunder rumbled outside, announcing a storm that might have already arrived. Just another calm night as a vampire in Hollywood. I need a drink. As I approached the staircase that would lead me outside, something made me freeze. I felt a presence nearby. It was approaching me from the staircase and from above. I'm gonna say, can't I catch a break for one night, because it doesn't matter. My disgruntled mutter, while cathartic, didn't do anything to stop the oncoming footsteps. A moment later, a different rumble started to echo from above, the sound of a car engine. This wasn't a chance encounter or a friendly visit. I was being ambushed. Over there, get her. She's probably trying to run away, just like I said she would. The stairway door flew open, letting out a group that rushed towards me. Almost simultaneously, a large black car pulled around the corner, angling itself to block my path. Within seconds, I found myself being surrounded, but almost all of the presences I felt weren't vampires, they were humans. Wait, we want to talk to her first. Two figures pushed through the group, swaggering towards me. Something about the woman seemed strangely familiar. No, she was definitely familiar. I'd seen her in the hotel lobby, angrily shouting at the desk clerk. She must have been an Iskari. I didn't recognize the man, but he had a normal air of a Mavar, only 10 times more bloodthirsty. So, are you here to kill me? Yeah, we're gonna get rid of the fucking problem. We're ready to go back to how things were before you showed your ugly face around here. The Mavar snarled eagerly at me, almost salivating like a mad dog. We're not going to kill you, though. Flashing me a delighted smirk, the Iskari motioned to the group surrounding me. These guys, they're hunters, and we made a deal with them to hand you over. They're really interested in all the juicy vampire secrets you know about, and they're gonna have a great time dragging them out of you. How can you just betray your own kind? Don't try to make us feel guilty, it's not gonna work. We don't even see you as one of our own kind. The look on her face confirmed what she said, the same sneer as someone who'd stepped in shit. This chick and I, normally we hate each other's guts, but we hate your fucking guts even more, even if she doesn't hate you for the right reasons. The two exchanged glances, returning their hateful stares to me a moment later. Everybody knows you're just pretending to be a rebel, that you're a big fucking joke. If you were really on the people's side, you'd have already cut open Queen Bitch. But no, it's like you don't even stand for anything, like you're just playing both sides. You're insane, you can't kill people just because you disagree. Says who? If we can fry murderers, why not politicians who murder, or oppressors, dictators? Hell, the world would be a better place if all the fuckers like her got gunned down. Ugh. None of this even matters, I just want to make sure she's not coming back. As if on cue, the hunters impatiently shifted around me, muttering to themselves. From what it sounded like, they were going to force me along in their car nearby. Come on, let's get this shit over with, I want to see her squirm. Agreed, go on humans, take her already. I've never gotten this option before because I've always made the Ascari girl question herself. Spring forward and attack them both. If my choices were either dying here or being tortured by hunters, I don't think this will matter. This choice will matter, but we'll see. A final stand seemed like a better way to go. Grabbing my knife, oh, my knife, my Randall knife, I sprang towards the vampires. Hey, I managed to grab the Mavar, holding him in front of me like a human shield. All the hunters' guns pointed at us, but they hesitated. The next moment, right as I blinked. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Suddenly, the Mavar's head was gone. The only thing left was an empty bleeding stump. A circular saw blade lay on the ground just past his body next to his severed head. The girl shrieked, stumbling back from the Mavar's corpse. A second huge blade whizzed past, slicing one of the hunter's arms in half. Where is it coming from? No, please. Within seconds, chaos and panic shrieks filled the garage. Everywhere I looked, blood splattered the floor, limbs and chunks of flesh falling in red pools. All the hunters were wildly firing their guns, trying to hit the unseen attacker. One of them turned to run, racing for the exit, until the saw blade gorged through his back, toppling him to the ground. I'm going to take cover for once. I think this will give me more human points, but it literally does nothing. Not wanting to be the next victim, I dived behind an old car, huddling to the ground. All around me I heard the hunters' panicked screams, abruptly cut off by wet slicing sounds. Whatever the attacker was, it wasn't showing them any mercy. The bloodbath didn't take much longer to finish. Before long, all the hunters were dead, their bodies littering the concrete. The only vampire who'd escaped was the Ascari. She dashed away as fast as her legs could take her, disappearing around the corner and not looking back. As her footsteps faded away, I was left alone again, surrounded by a sea of mangled corpses. But in the eerie, too peaceful silence that followed, I heard the stairway door open and close. Follow the attacker. Again, this never does anything, but yeah, that sound had to be the mysterious attacker leaving. Knowing this would be my only chance to see them, I sprinted for the stairs, slamming the doors open. There wasn't any normal vampiric scent for me to follow. It was something strange, alien. Still, I heard footsteps climbing above me, so I hurried desperately after them. When I reached the surface, I didn't see anyone at first, until I glanced down the alley just in time to glimpse a tall, dark-haired figure stalking into the street. Not Marcus. His presence felt different. Different but familiar, oddly, terribly familiar, but it was too faint and obscure for me to place it. I followed him as quickly as I could, rushing out of the alley. Out on the main road, a huge crowd was gathered for some kind of celebrity event. The man must have disappeared into the bustling throng of people because I couldn't see him anywhere. In that crowd, there was no way I'd be finding him anytime soon. His presence was just so hard to pin down, like it belonged to a ghost or something else I couldn't even comprehend. I feel like it gave more of a description of him that time. And I guess it made it obvious that it is Josiah. Like, I don't know. I feel like it is, right? Disappointed, I ended up hailing a cab, riding back to the hotel with even more questions in my mind. Some flecks of blood, both the hunters and the vampires, from the smell of it, had landed on my face and clothes. The taxi driver gave me a funny look, but didn't seem as freaked out as he probably should have been. Maybe it wasn't his first time seeing a passenger like me. By the time I reached the hotel, I felt a little more composed. It was difficult to process what had happened, both for me and the hotel clerk, who stared at me open-mouthed as I arrived. Miss Locke would like to speak with you on the phone. All right. After quickly dialing up a number, the clerk handed me the receiver. On the second ring, a voice picked up. Valky, is that you? What on earth happened? You should have been back some time ago. I heard a touch of worry in her voice. I was attacked on my way back. By whom, exactly? Oh, for heavens, go on, just tell me everything. At Charisse's frustrated command, I explained what had happened in the parking garage. She listened silently, and I could almost hear the deep crease knitting on her brow. When I finally finished, she let out a long sigh. The following clink, probably Charisse taking off her glasses. You seem to have this remarkable talent for attracting the worst sort of attention. If one of your attackers escaped, I have no doubt that the news will spread like wildfire, so be prepared for any rumors drifting about. And the individual who rescued you is nearly just as worrying. Have you any idea who it was? His presence felt familiar, like my sire. Ooh. Your sire? Charisse murmured, sounding shocked. I have no idea what his motives might possibly be. I suppose he could have felt obliged to protect his progeny. But it's strange he never came to your aid before tonight. Perhaps your attackers attracted his attention somehow or provoked his wrath. Either way, I don't think you should count on him swooping in to rescue you again. She exhaled another sigh, sounding as resigned as she did confused. Well, regardless of your mystery savior, you'll have to be on high alert from now on, Valky. I doubt most of LA's vampires feel so passionately about you, but after tonight, we can't ignore the possibility. I don't know what I did to get them so worked up. Take my word for it, Valky, people don't require much provocation to get worked up. Even if you accidentally shake their view of the world, they'll take it as a grave personal offense, as if you threaten their very existence. Consider curbing your behavior, assuming you don't want to deal with more attacks every night. After clearing her throat pointedly, Charisse paused for a moment. I'm out of the city right now on business, but I'll be back at the hotel tomorrow. We'll discuss things further then. Do try and stay alive until I've returned. I will, and you should do the same. Indeed, our times haven't come yet, Valky. With that, she abruptly hung up. I handed the phone back to the anxious-looking clerk, who offered me a temporary change of clothes, again. By the time I'd gotten the blood off my face and hair, let me get the Steam thingy open. I'd gotten the blood off my face and hair, there were still a few hours left till sunrise. I had time to venture into the city again if I felt brave enough. Okay, so we're gonna go to the graveyard. I'm sorry, I'm gonna skip through this again. Oops. The war's about to reach its breaking point. Okay, about someone else. Someone named Morgan wants to meet you. She seems very insightful. I think you should meet her. This should have given me... What? How is this possible? It seems like everything I'm doing is making the Golgotha hate me. How is this possible? Shit, when was my last load? Fuck. Give me like a second, dear. Alright, I don't know, like the Golgotha reputation took a hit at some point, and I don't know when. It was even before all of this, so... But I don't know what I did. Wait, what do I need to do? On the last night, there's not a lot to do. And apparently Morgan is just not... Her end of the bargain is just not happening. Right, where am I going? God, just having that random drop in reputation that came from nowhere. I don't think I even interacted with any Golgotha. It's like really like bummed me out. I have my driver take me to Santa Monica. We'll do this and then we'll go to the hotel. I'm just gonna... there's another walkthrough, but I'll deal with that, like... I'll deal with that after this one. I guess I'm gonna have to go with Charisse's. Which is gonna suck, because he doesn't want me to do that, and I'll just feel like I'm betraying him. Sorry, I'm getting freaking distracted because I'm bummed out that things aren't working. A large crowd was gathered inside, filling the air with chattering of excited voices. Everywhere I looked, vampires were clustered tightly together like a hive of buzzing bees, but amidst the swarm of Mavar, I saw a strangely solitary figure by the sliding door, Randall. I stepped over to the door where the Mavar were giving Randall an unusually wide berth. Maybe he'd asked to be alone for a little while. When I got close, he didn't seem to notice me at first, until finally his head jerked up. Valky. Oh, this is different. And before I knew what was happening, Randall's powerful arms had suddenly grabbed me into a hug. He lifted me off the ground, burying his face against my neck, and the next moment Randall roughly pressed his lips to mine. It felt less romantic than desperate, as if he were trying to reassure himself that I was alright. Finally, he let me go. After I heard what happened, I was fucking terrified. I knew you were tough, but fuck, I kept thinking of all the awful shit they could have done to you. You're okay, right? I'm sure you're shaken up, but... It was terrifying. I didn't know if I was going to make it out there. Fuck, I hope those fuckers all got whatever they deserved. Randall sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. Well, if you're alright, then that's a big weight off my shoulders. If you want, we can talk about something else, get your mind off things. I get if you're not up for it, though. Have you had many lovers in the past? I don't know if I'd say many, but some, sure. Got my hearts ripped out and stomped on a few times. It makes you tough in a lot of ways, but it also makes you real cynical about other people, and that's shitty. So you better not let me down, Valky, okay? Go fuck, that's a lot of fucking pressure. He reached out to gently stroke a hand through my hair, his fingers trailing down my cheek before he let his arm fall back to his side. Good thing I got a punch card for Marcus's shop. What? Do your tattoos have any meaning? It's mostly just designs that I thought looked badass. Got them after I was turned, which is a real bitch with vamp blood, let me tell you. Nice smelling Pete found a way somehow. Some of them are related to the occult, since I was real into it for a while. Got a few Kabbalah references hidden in there too. No tramp stamps yet, but maybe before I die. Are there vampire hierarchies or oppression in other cities? Yeah, of course, it's everywhere, all over the world. Even after they're dead, people can't get enough of their fucking power trips. There's a lot of bad shit in California and New York, places where you got big shots with egos the size of the fucking planet, and plenty of them end up as vampires. It mostly ends up being a struggle between Mavar and Skari, while Golgotha do their own weird thing. They sometimes pull strings from the shadows, I guess. Either way, it pisses me off that you can't escape it as a vampire. You'd think we'd have evolved beyond human bullshit politics. Pure animals could have figured out better than we do, 9 times out of 10. How do you normally feed? Like a regular vampire, I find a human in a dark street or in a club and I take my fill from them. Blood pets, humans who ask you to feed off of them, they give me the heebie-jeebies, not gonna lie. I don't like the idea of talking about the weather with my filet mignon. Besides, we're hunters by nature, top of the food chain, right? I'm not gonna kill an innocent human, but I sure as hell will drink from one. Randall briefly flashed me a fanged smirk. Tell me a story from your childhood. My childhood, huh? Before I moved to LA as a teenager, I grew up in a shitty little town north of Bakersfield. It was small, nobody comes out of that place with any dreams. To tell you the truth, I can't really remember anything, except for this one time, I guess. But it's not, you know, funny or interesting. I still like to hear it. Alright. He paused for a long few moments, staring off in silent thought. I remember walking home from school by myself. It was real hot, scorching, had sweat dripping in my eyes. Big old heavy backpack, lots of books, too big for a scrawny little kid. I turned a street corner and this red pickup truck drove past. About a minute later, I heard another car coming down the street behind me. When I looked over, I saw it was the same truck rolling slowly beside me. Just one guy in it, the driver. He had his arm hanging out the window, gave me this big, wide smile, missing teeth. He told me I was a cute kid, so I should climb in and he'd show me something nice. Man, I just wanted to cry. I just wanted to scream. But I turned away and started running as fast as I could, cutting through someone's lawn, racing towards my house. It was still a mile away. My backpack, it was just so heavy, and I was panting so hard I thought my lungs were going to burst open, and I could hear that truck following me. Then I jumped over this fence, the fence to this house that I knew had a bunch of pit bulls. Guess I decided I'd rather be mauled to death than be... He abruptly cut off his breath. He abruptly cut off, his breath hitching in his throat. But the dogs weren't inside the fence that day, so I huddled down and waited. Waited and waited and waited. I was probably there for an hour, maybe more. Then finally, I made myself crawl back home. I had a real hard time sleeping that night. Randall, I'm sorry. Don't know why you're sorry, not like it's your fault somehow. Just how life is. Didn't mean to rain on the mood or anything, but yeah, that's all I got. You have any other questions for me, Valky? What about Andre? Oh, God. As soon as I mentioned Andre's name, Randall went rigid, his teeth clenching. Don't ever fucking trust anything that guy tells you, Valky. All I'm gonna say is he's cold, evil bastard. Scares me more than Charisse does. Okay. Did you ever find out who your shooter was? No, we've got bigger things to worry about, like keeping on our toes for the war. I don't think they'll try and shoot me again, but if they do, I'll be ready this time. I met this guy who lives in the sewers, Lazarus. He has no idea about him. Lazarus, huh? Not ringing any bells, sorry, though I didn't know the sewers were a real estate hotspot. That's all for now, I think. Alright, I'm real glad you came to see me, Valky. He reached out a hand, softly trailing his fingers through my hair before grasping my shoulder with a gentle squeeze. Be careful out there, because, well, until the war's over, anything could fucking happen. As we parted ways, I felt Randall's gaze still on my back, following me closely. I feel so bad that I'm gonna have to betray him. I can't get the leader one because the game bugged out on me or something. Slipping out of the beach house, I made my way back across the sand. I need to go spend time at the hotel. Man, it's such a fucking bummer. Even the rep boost I was supposed to get from Morgan didn't help. It literally didn't go up at all. Tonight, the hotel was bustling with activity. Iskari lined the sofas and clustered around the lobby, having important-sounding discussions among themselves. I'm going to check it again. Even my Iskari rep went down. Why? I didn't do anything. I literally did nothing. It was bad. I noticed a few glances thrown my way as I stepped past the desk and some lingering curious stares that followed me around. Talk to the Iskari. Drifting among the elegant crowd of vampires, I wandered from group to group, listening to and occasionally joining conversations. Almost all of the Iskari recognized me or knew my name when I introduced myself. Apparently, my reputation was starting to precede me. Most of them were warm, or at least acted polite when I stepped up to them, and the occasional sharp glares I got seemed to be from the minority. As I mingled with the other vampires, I decided to hint at my ambitions for leadership. Without making any traitorous intentions obvious, I subtly implied to the Iskari that a new leader might be healthy for the city's coven. The fact that I was interested in uniting all three houses was just a fortunate coincidence. Or was it? I let the groups decide that for themselves, but I could tell from their keen gazes that they'd picked up on my hints, for better or worse. To my surprise, quite a few Iskari seemed intrigued by the prospect. I fielded some questions about my own style of leadership in a dance of implications and nonchalance, carefully avoiding any answers that would get me in trouble with Charisse. It was hard for me to say for sure, but I had the feeling that most of the Iskari, especially the younger ones, would be receptive to a more moderate leader. And that should have got me some boost. That got me a boost, but the Golgotha didn't. What the fuck? By the time I stepped away from the gathering people, they were already trickling out, heading up to their rooms or wandering back into the streets. Whatever, I'm going back to my room. I'm mad. After the stress and excitement from that unexpected attack, my body was practically screaming for rest, so I decided to head upstairs. As I returned to my room, I still felt slightly unnerved from my earlier brush with death. The sight of all those bodies stayed fresh in my mind. What if our places had been reversed and my corpse was lying there right now while they walked free? If not for my mysterious savior, that situation might have come true. The thought didn't give me any comfort as I huddled in for another dreamless rest. Oh, ring ring. A loud noise jolted me awake. It was the phone. Someone was ringing me at the ungodly hour of 7:18 p.m. After shaking off the haze of sleep, I reached out to grab the receiver. Hello? No reply, but I knew someone was there. In the background I could hear an odd muffled noise. Then, all of a sudden, a soft, bitter sob leaked out from the other end of the line. I couldn't recognize the voice, yet it sounded distantly familiar. Are you okay? The pitiful whimpers almost sounded like they were trying to form words, but I couldn't make anything out, only the sound of grief, shuddering inhales between choked sobs. What's wrong? Please tell me. There was a long pause. Were they going to finally say something? What if... Click. The line went dead. I reflexively shook my head. Even though the voice was gone, I felt like I could still hear those quiet sobs echoing in my ears. It hadn't sounded like anyone I knew, but what if it was? Even though the voice probably wasn't Randall's, my mind was already racing through the worst possible scenarios. At least I knew his number, though, unlike the others. I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep like this. Better to call and make sure that he was alright. Quickly dialing Randall's number, I listened to it ring once, twice, 3 times. Yeah? Who is this? Randall's gruff greeting rang out, same as always. Hey Randall, just wanted to make... I don't know. You didn't happen to just call me, did you? Oh hey Valky, wait, call you? I didn't know. Why, did someone ring your room and hang up? Yeah, and they were crying. Crying? Huh, that's a little freaky. Maybe someone drank a little too much spiked blood, heh. He paused for a moment, clearing his throat. Oh, actually, I wanted to ask you something. See, ever since tension started heating up, I haven't really been able to see Marcus. His place is pretty close to Charisse's turf, and he hasn't been picking up any calls for a while. With the way things are going, well, I wanted to drop by his place tonight to get to catch up a little. Who knows when I'll be able to see him again. Anyway, I was hoping you'd come with me. Of course, I'd love to go. Fuck yeah, then I'll meet you outside. Oh wait. You ever been to his shop before? Maybe you should pick something out for me there. Man, that's a great idea. I'm sure Marcus wouldn't act like a smug dick about it the whole time or anything. Dick, heh. Randall snickered, clearly amused by the thought. I'll meet you there in about an hour, alright? Just ask the hotel clerk for directions to the shop. Say you're getting a present for Charisse so she can go fuck herself. And hey, be careful on the streets, Valky. His voice abruptly grew solemn. After those 2 crazy vampires jumped you, don't you fucking dare go anywhere dangerous by yourself, okay? You never know what can happen these days. Feels like nobody's ever really safe. His quiet warning stayed in my ears after we hung up, even as I readied myself to leave the hotel. It mingled with my memory of the mysterious caller, and though I knew it had probably been just a prank or a wrong number, something about it still haunted me. It was creepy. Especially if it wasn't actually him. Fucking creepy. Well, you're a sight for sore eyes. When I arrived at Blood and Roses a short while later, Randall was already waiting for me. Something about him seemed different tonight. A strange scent, one that reminded me of the hunters, oddly enough. Uncomfortably intense, even though his expression looked the same as always. You just gonna stand there and stare at me? Come here. He pulled me into his arms, nuzzling an affectionate kiss to the top of my head. I missed you. Hug him tightly. I missed you too, Valky. His arms returned my squeeze, but more gently, cradling instead of crushing me. Feels like you're the only person who really gets me sometimes. As we separated, a smile quickly crawled back over his lips. Come on, let's head inside. I didn't call him before I left, so it's going to be a surprise visit. But he's got the open sign on, so I'm guessing we can enter his orifice. I mean, his office. Jesus, he's a child. I followed Randall through the door, unsure of what we'd find. The shop I stepped into was the unholy union of a goth teenager's bedroom and Dracula's sex dungeon. My eyes were attacked with an obscene amount of red velvet, gaudy lighting, and faux Victorian furniture, but that wasn't the most striking part. That honour belonged to the whips, chains, and shockingly large accessories on display. As for the floors, they were cluttered with shelves chock full of books, VCR tapes, and magazines. I couldn't even begin to count how many. It was like a perverse library of Alexandria. There was no sign of Marcus, but I could sense a presence nearby. And for the sake of all the vampires in Los Angeles, it's necessary that... Beg your pardon, good queen. It would appear that we have visitors. A pair of voices rang out from beyond the shelves. One belonged to Marcus, but the other one was just as familiar. Uh-oh. What? You... When we rounded the corner, Randall stopped dead in his tracks. Cherie stared back at Randall with a mix of shock and horror. It was like someone had told her the hotel burned to the ground. No, even then she probably wouldn't look so appalled. Well now, isn't this a charming little congregation? Marcus, on the other hand, was beaming as if Christmas had just come early. The Red Queen, the superstar myself, and Valky, our grand liberator. Shall I fetch the tea and scones? Or no, perhaps something a little lighter, since the two of you are undoubtedly already suffering from indigestion. Instead of clobbering us with your dull humour, Marcus, perhaps you could explain what Randall and Valky are doing here. I was under the impression that this was to be a private meeting. And I was under the impression that there's a fucking open sign outside, so I didn't need a goddamn warrant to come in. It didn't take very long for them to recover their wits and start shooting hateful remarks at each other. Maybe we should just calm down. Well, unlike you, Randall, I am here attempting to find a way to end this city's conflict peacefully. Peacefully? Am I missing something here? Because the way I see it, it'd be pretty fucking peaceful if you just stepped down, like we've gone through 1,000 goddamn times before. Oh yes, of course, how silly of me. Let me just throw away all the work I've done to make Los Angeles a safer place for all of us. For the first time since I'd met her, Cherie sounded legitimately furious, her normally composed voice full of passion. The territorial boundaries to avoid conflicts, the rules to keep us from slaughtering each other, the system that prevents new vampires from being spontaneously turned and thrown into the world, jeopardizing all of our existences. And what makes you think your leadership is the important part in all that? Randall cut Charisse off with a snarl, pointing an accusing finger at her face. Plenty of other cities with vampires get along just fine without tyrants telling them what to do. Why the fuck is LA any different? This city has the highest vampiric population in the world. Don't you understand that we're... If I may be so bold as to interrupt, Marcus gently raised a hand. Only listen to him. The other two reluctantly paused, turning their attention towards him. Even though he had two of LA's most powerful and angry vampires standing in his shop, Marcus looked incredibly relaxed, and I had to wonder if he'd planned all of this from the start. Then again, nothing really seemed to catch Marcus off guard. Surely we are all aware that the conflict in Los Angeles is ascending in its rickety cable car to a tumultuous finale. It will not be long now before our redeemer and villain become clear, yet who they are still remains as murky as the light-polluted sky. The three of us are all rather biased, as we've been established in this city for some time now. However, don't you look at me, Marcus. With a slow, elusive smirk curling over his lips, Marcus gestured grandly towards me. Two pairs of sharp eyes flicked onto my face. Our friend Valky here, despite her close ties to Randall, may have a more lucid take on things, especially considering her recent arrival. I'm gonna check my stats again. The Golgotha rep went back up a little bit. I'm so confused. I guess it would happen the next day because Morgan would know I'd done the deal or whatever, but it doesn't make sense that it went down still. I'm so mad. Tell us, Valky, what are your thoughts on the redemption of LA? Why can't we come to a compromise? The room went completely silent, though outside the shop's windows I heard the dull hum of traffic droning on. In that moment, the anger between Charisse and Randall suddenly seemed to deflate, but the look in their eyes wasn't one of hope. We've tried, Valky. Randall finally broke the silence, muttering quietly. We don't want to end up wiping each other out. But our houses will not reconcile. From the way Charisse finished Randall's thought, it was clear that they'd tried this talk before, maybe too many times. At the start of this war, Randall and I tried to find common ground to reach a compromise that would work for everyone. Until we finally realized that they don't want to compromise. His gaze drifted between Charisse and me, finally settling on my face with a longing resignation. And so we started speaking out against each other, trying to force the other into leaving or resigning, the things that our followers want. Because the only way for our houses to feel satisfied is for the other one to lose. Well, it sounds like your houses are fucking lame then. The room fell quiet again. Marcus leaned against the counter, observing us with his dimly glowing eyes. I wanted to believe that one day you and I would be able to come together, Randall. But it seems that was only a fool's idealism in the end. With a humorless smile, Charisse shook her head, taking a step towards the door. Wait, Charisse. Yes? When she paused to glance back at us, Randall grimaced. Thanks. What are you thanking me for? For letting Valky come to me, even if it was just to serve your own fucking ends somehow. He lowered a hand onto my shoulder, grasping it for reassurance. With or without the war, I didn't know I needed her as much as I did. Charisse blinked at him, speechless. It was hard to blame her. She probably hadn't come here expecting to be genuinely thanked by Randall of all people. Yes, well, depending on how the final die is cast, in the end you might not be so thankful after all. As her troubled words faded into silence, Charisse vanished around the shelves. The shop door opened and closed a moment later, and then it was only the three of us. None of us spoke. Randall still stood close to my side, but when I glanced over at him, something about his expression seemed strangely withdrawn. That brief meeting had thrown him off his pace, and it seemed like he was struggling to get it back. If you want to avoid any further spontaneous encounters with your nemesises, perhaps you should be more careful about the places you visit. Marcus shattered the silence with a dry murmur to Randall, lofting an eyebrow. Sorry, Marcus. I thought I'd come by with Valky to see you, but I wasn't expecting all that. Yes, you and Valky. It seems the two of you have decided to damn yourselves further with a certain commitment. I am unsure whether to offer my congratulations or condolences. Randall means the world to me, Marcus. For a split second I felt Randall stiffen beside me, but he soon let out a soft chuckle, smoothing my hair back and pressing his lips to my forehead. And it goes both ways. Now, I would be happy to offer you a complimentary gift from my shop, but I'm afraid no licentious... How do you actually say that word? I don't know. Acts are permitted on the premises, so please refrain from defiling my emporium of pornography. Sure, but only because you asked nicely. Randall's playful grin lightened his face for a few lingering moments before it finally faded into an uncertain, wan smile. Well, idle chatter aside, you did come here for a reason, did you not? Well, yeah, I mean we... Sighing, Randall glanced away from us briefly. Shit, who am I kidding? You already guessed it, didn't you? It's written all over your face. You wanted me to lend my support to you and Valky. Marcus replied swiftly, his upper lip curling a tiny bit. That's not what you told me, Randall. I didn't want you to think I was just bringing you along to get his sympathy or anything, but you're as core to LA's future as any of us, and I don't feel right going behind your back. Marcus leaned against the counter with a heavy sigh, his gaze roaming across the newspaper. For a moment, he suddenly broke into a soft smile, like someone had whispered a joke that only he could hear. Every vampire in this city either believes I am the boogeyman, wants me dead, or wants something from me. Some days I don't know which of them are which. His eyes flicked up to Randall, though not as accusingly as his words implied. Then his focus shifted onto me. The future of Los Angeles is yours to build, not mine. We are a part of it, and it is a part of us, ineffable, inescapable, intangible. But how you make your peace with it, that is none of my affair. Marcus's words seemed to shatter Randall's heart. There was no surprise in his eyes, just the awful sinking look of someone being told news that they dreaded. Are you trying to say you don't care what happens to us? It doesn't matter to you if LA gets crushed under someone's boot, or every vampire lives in fear, or we all get killed for what we've said and done. I understand it's our responsibility. I know that, Valky. I just hope that... Forget it. Shaking his head gently, Randall reached down to take my hand. Come on, Valky. Let's leave Marcus to his shop. I followed Randall to the door, weaving through the forest of shelves, sinking slightly into the thick carpet. But as we were about to step outside, I felt Marcus's eyes still on my back. Oh, what the fuck is this? I bet when I look back, he's not going to be looking at me. When I glanced over my shoulder, I saw that Marcus had followed us from a distance. He nodded at me ever so slightly and then jerked his his chin towards Randall's back, and with that small gesture he turned away, disappearing once more into the depths of his shop. I guess that's him telling us to take care of him or something. I don't think Marcus doesn't care about him. Man, every time I take you somewhere, some kind of shit always goes down, doesn't it? Randall muttered under his breath as the shop door closed behind us. Maybe we should only hang out at petting zoos from now on. At least no one was shot at this time. This was an improvement. Yeah, well, don't fucking jinx it. He let out a slightly forced laugh, brushing a hand against his throat. You know, I figured the worst thing that could happen was Marcus getting mad and throwing a butt plug at my head, but I guess he decided to just fuck both of us instead. He spoke with the strained humor of someone trying to mask their disappointment. Honestly, I didn't think he'd offer his support, since he's just not that kind of guy, but for your sake, I thought I'd give it a try. For my sake? The best way to keep you safe would have been for Marcus to work something out with Charisse, or hell, even just keep an eye on you at the hotel since I can't. He's got a kind of power that nobody else has in this city. Like I told you when we first met, he could take LA under his thumb if he wanted to. And if word got out that he supported us, even the Gauls would be shitting themselves. Marcus has a real reputation, that's for sure. But he won't lend his support to any side. He just wants to let the dice fall for whatever fucking reason. I just wish I understood why. Randall gave me a long, uncertain look. Fuck, I didn't want you to see me like that in there, though. You know, I think Charisse is a bitch and needs to get off her fucking throne, but when I see her, it's like coming face to face with the thing that scares me the most. A dictator who thinks they're justified by the will of the people, who loses their humanity while trying to save it, trying to do the right thing. I never want to be like that. You never will be, Randall, I know you won't. Thanks, Valky. He gave me a long smile, one that probably was meant to be reassuring, but the look in his eyes, the traces of worry, never changed. Listen, I'm pretty sick of all this depressing shit. I don't want to think about it right now. Randall heaved a sigh, rubbing a hand along his tattooed forearm. But you know, I heard there's something fun going on at the pier tonight, so why don't we head over there to lighten things up? And we will do that in the next one, but I will be stopping for now. But I will see you then. Bye!